Happy Sunday to everybody, and welcome to another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. I'm Brian Nemhauser, and today is a special day. Not only is it episode 301 of Hawk Blogger Mornings, 301 straight days of doing this, but we've got one of our best crews that we can assemble to talk Seahawks, to talk draft. We have brought him back from across the pond, Rob Staton of the Seahawks Draft Blog. How are you doing this morning, Rob? Or this afternoon or evening, as it may be?
It's evening here. Yeah, it's evening. It's freezing. It's freezing in the house, even though I'm inside. So, it's all good here in England. But hopefully it's a bit warmer in Seattle and in Canada.
It's a little frosty. I would say I'm not really accustomed to talking to you during normal waking hours. So I'm curious if you're going to be more or less lucid at, 5 or 6 in the evening, your time, versus 3 in the morning.
Well, I've just got back from work. I've just done a broadcast. So I am probably wired right now. Whenever I do a broadcast, I'm really hyper for a couple of hours. So you've probably got to be at the worst time.
That's great. Well, everyone needs energy on a Sunday morning. Also, back-to-back days. Jeff Simmons, we can't get enough of the guy. He's got a newborn, but he's also got that newborn energy, which means you just never know. He may fall asleep in the middle of the show. Rob may need to send some of his energy across the way. How you doing, Jeff?
I'm all right. I'm hanging in there. My son got a good amount of sleep last night. I don't know if it was that Chiefs-Texan game put him to bed, but I was actually able to watch a lot of the football games yesterday. He went down for a nap right at the start of the first game, slept through the whole thing. We woke him up at halftime of the Lions game, and I was watching it in the third quarter in bed with him on an iPad. So I got to watch my usual football. I got normal sleep last night. I actually feel refreshed for the first time, and I don't want to jinx it, but
yeah, you just did.
I just did. I should have. I realized I screwed up right as I said it.
Well, I have to admit something because, going into the mock drafts, I've got to just be honest about the level of intellect you guys will be dealing with. So you guys know, I think, that I go on a fair amount of hikes. I just like getting out and outside as much as I can. It's probably why I live where I live. And every single place you go hiking, every single place, the parking lot, it's do not leave valuables in your car. Don't be an idiot. Don't leave valuables in your car. This is a local hike, half a mile from my house. And I was I don't know if I want to lug my wallet today. I'm going to go lean, just my AirPods and my phone. And I come back. I'm halfway through my hike, and I start getting these alerts on my phone of did you make this charge? Did you make this charge? And I'm what? No, maybe one of my credit cards got swiped in a skimmer or something. Get back to my car an hour and a half later, window smashed,
oh, no.
Wallet gone, ID, all my cards. And I'm God, I'm so stupid. So stupid. There's no reason to leave it in the car. So I am that guy. I'm telling you this tale not only to confirm how dumb I am, but to also be the warning, be the PSA. Don't be stupid. Just don't do it. So
yeah, and alternatively, don't if you are the kind of person to do that, stop making everybody's lives miserable. It's so frustrating when stuff like this. You can't have any nice things anymore. You can't. People just won't let you live your life. So that's horrible, man.
Thank you. Did anything ever come of your thievery situation?
No, I mean, I don't know what it's like in America, but basically the police don't even investigate these things. So
yeah,
someone breaks into your house when you're asleep upstairs with the kids. They come and steal your car. They drive off with it, and they just give you a crime number so you can get the insurance. That's it.
I was thinking about this. We will get into football here in just a second. You know how they probably don't do this in London, but or in England, I should say, but in the U.S. they do these Amber Alerts, when somebody's been kidnapped and they broadcast it everywhere. And I was sitting there thinking they've got the technology that allows them to find any license plate through anywhere, but they make us all look for this person. I feel they could find people that steal this stuff, but it's is that really?
They've everywhere around here. They've got cameras on all of the roads, so they can track where people go with your car.
Right.
They know where it went, but it's not worth their while. These people who are doing this, I could talk for an hour about this. I don't know if we're going to be pairs, but it's really frustrating the way that.
Yeah.
You know, I wish that people would just stop making people's lives miserable with that.
I hope my mom wasn't listening to this episode because I'm going to get an upset text from her. Are you okay?
No.
You know,
you don't want that to happen.
Oh my gosh, she does listen pretty regularly, but I want to be a warning for everybody else. So, guys, before we even talk draft, we got to talk about what happened yesterday in the playoffs, because it has meaning for the Seahawks, I think, on a number of levels. And in fact, our first super chat comes from one of our most ardent supporters. Detail Oriented says, the Lions lost. The Fraley Udinsky combo is alive. Let's go. So this was not expected by the bookkeepers, by anybody, other than maybe the folks in the Washington locker room. What did you guys make of the games yesterday? Feel free to talk about that one, or if you want to talk about the Chiefs Texans, we'll go there too. Rob, what were your thoughts yesterday?
Well, I'd have to say this is probably going to go against what a lot of other people felt about it, but I was quite happy that the Lions lost and was somewhat delighted, because it helps the Seahawks a little bit, because now at least they can speak to Hank Fraley. Well, you would imagine that's what's going to happen, and it's another option. And if he warrants the job, if he deserves to be the next defensive coordinator, then it's a good thing that he had that opportunity to come on interviews, because I want the best thing for the Seahawks. Frankly, I couldn't care less. As long as it's not the Niners, I don't care who wins the Super Bowl. So they're not in it, so it doesn't matter. So I just want the best possible person to run this offense. I don't want to be doing this every year for the Seahawks, looking for another offensive coordinator. So Hank Fraley hopefully is going to have an in-person meeting, and then may the best man win. And I hope they get this right. But certainly them losing is a good thing. And in the game overall, fair play to Washington. Great job from Dan Quinn. Jaden Daniels looks like the real deal, doesn't he? And that other playoff game was, as Jeff quite rightly mentioned earlier, absolutely boring and predictable, wasn't it? So there we go.
Jeff, what about you?
A couple things. One, the work the three of us do jumped off the page to me. Think of the guys that took over the games yesterday. Will Anderson. How much time did we spend on him? We saw Trent McDuffie in the Chiefs game. George Karlaftis. Brian Branch for a bit. Mikey Sainstrill. All these guys that we've studied the last 2 years. Brian, I saw you put out your list of all your favorites. We're going to see Jared Verse today. All this work we've done the last couple of years, especially you see all these guys flashing in the most important weekend, usually of the year. You see, the Seahawks have done a good job, but you see, they haven't done a great job. And so many of these players we've talked about, whether it's been bad luck. You saw Jaden Daniels. We've all talked about the need to get a franchise quarterback. Jaden Daniels. But, I'm still a little shocked that the Lions lost. It feels like one of the biggest upsets I can remember in the playoffs. And the Washington was awesome last night. I'm happy for Dan Quinn, and from the Seahawks perspective, you really see how important it is for them to figure out their offense, starting with the coordinator, the offensive line, the quarterback. All these teams that are playing have really good and reliable offenses. I think the Seahawks have, if the Lions had the Seahawks defense yesterday, they probably would have won the game. Man, you see, Washington doesn't have much of a defense. These teams don't have the defense, but you see how far the Seahawks kind of are on offense and how much they have to come to become one of these teams. But man, just seeing all the draft players and all these guys take over the games and all the franchise quarterbacks, it really reaffirms how important the draft is. All this stuff we talk about, people think it's nonsense, but look at who took over both games yesterday. It was the dudes we've talked about for years.
I think that one of the interesting points there is, I think more so than a lot of years, the rookie class has had a pretty significant impact on these playoffs. I mean, Jaden Daniels is the most obvious, but Jared Verse certainly has. Sainstrill last night, a couple picks. There's been a fair number of rookies that have had meaningful impact in the playoffs, and we'll see what happens in the games today as well. But, I posted a couple tweets because I think this is interesting just from a, teams left in the playoffs perspective and what matters or what's seeming to matter. It was 5 of the 6 remaining teams have top 10 offenses by DVOA. Only 2 of the 6 remaining teams have top 10 defenses. So I don't think that's like take it to the bank, but I think it's an interesting piece. If you dive in a little bit deeper on the offenses, by passing offense, Baltimore, Buffalo, and Washington and the Rams. So 4 have top 10 passing offenses. If you go by rushing offense DVOA, Baltimore's all over this. Baltimore, Buffalo, Philadelphia, Washington, and then the Rams are 11. So again, like the running game, like everyone's always like pass, like offense is what matters most. Pass is what matters the most. Again, the running game seems to be a pretty significant aspect of how a lot of these teams are winning these games. And I think I would bet whoever has the most rushing, like effective rushing game, let's call it success rate even, to go away from rushing yards, because I know all the stat geeks will come out of the woodwork. But Buffalo versus Baltimore, show me who rushes the ball more effectively in that game, and I bet that's the team that wins that game. I see nodding heads.
Oh, I think, yeah, go ahead, Rob.
Well, I completely agree. But I also think it shows that, offensively, you've got to be very good. I mean, the one thing that you sort of look at, if you're going to beat the Lions, you're probably going to have to outscore them. That's why Washington kept going for it on 4th down. And, they are very aggressive. They've got an explosive offense themselves, which is far from perfect. It's just they've got an amazing quarterback. They've got some weapons there. And you look at the other teams like the Bills and the Ravens can go to any team in any situation, and they can run the ball, they can throw the ball. And I think from the Seahawks perspective, it was great to see the defense taking a step forward, but they've got to get the offense right, haven't they? It's been too long since Seattle, like you could feel what an identity was for Seattle on offense. They could say certain things, what they wanted to do, but then they wouldn't execute how they intended. And they've got to get that right this offseason. This is an offense off season for me. It doesn't mean you ignore the defense, but they've got to get the offense right moving forward. Otherwise, they're not going to be able to contend with the Eagles and the Lions and the Commanders moving forward. And the NFC's wide open. Like the Seahawks are not a million miles away from these teams, but they are a ways away unless they can fix the offense.
Yeah. I'll tell you what. The other thing that's just screaming for me is look at the quarterbacks that are left. How many of them can run the ball?
Yeah.
Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels, Jalen Hurts. So, I mean, even Patrick Mahomes, he can move. He absolutely, like, that's not his first thing, but he can do it. And I think I've talked about this with Robert Mays, I've talked with other people. I don't think it's a prerequisite, obviously, but man, the value of a running quarterback, I don't know if it's ever been more valuable than it is right now. And so as we talk about the draft stuff going up, I think that factors into some of these evaluations as we consider it, not just for the draft, but also potential guys you're talking about free agency, potential guys you're talking about with trades. I can't get Joe Milton's last start out of my head. I don't think he's going to be available, but I'm telling you, man, he made throws on the move that I just didn't know he was capable of making. That was a high level game he played.
Did you see any of him at Tennessee or at the Combine?
Yes.
I mean, it was weird because, like everybody else, I've gone and watched that game, the Patriots game at the end of the season, to sort of see what the fuss was all about. And he looks like a completely different player.
Yeah.
Like at Tennessee, he just couldn't throw. Like, I mean, he could throw it far, but it was inaccurate. It was all over the place. Even at the Combine, he was throwing behind and in front, and his timing was all over the place. And then you watch that game, and he looked like a top 10 pick had walked out onto the field in that game. And you kind of wonder, was it a one-off? Was it the opponent or whatever? But I mean, he just looked so good, didn't he, in that game? It's hard not to sort of say, well, hang on a minute here. Maybe with good coaching, maybe he just didn't have sufficient coaching in his time with 2 schools in college to reach the level that he's now showing.
Well, let me just say this. If he had that game when Geno Smith went down, if you'd picked him and he came in and he had that game, instead of what Sam Howell did when he came out, right?
Yeah.
What would the conversation be? Would anyone be saying extend Geno? Like, I don't know if they would.
Start Milton. That's what they're saying.
A Griff, maybe. You guys know I'm of the 3 of us, I'm the biggest Geno fan of this crew. But I mean, I don't disagree with the fact that the guy's going to be 35 and it's a lot of money, and you got to figure out. So like the Seahawks don't have that. They don't have someone that's shown that kind of promise sitting behind Geno Smith. And it really is it's a factor as we go into this offseason. And I'm just still not convinced. I know Brady Henderson, when he's gone on there, he's not convinced either that it's a fait accompli that Geno Smith's going to be back this year. We'll see. So anyway, those are some of the things I took away. It's like physical running quarterbacks. Really,
before we
really
move
valuable.
on, so let's say that the Patriots were minded to make a change.
Yes.
What would you be willing to offer for a Joe Milton? That's a difficult question to answer.
I mean, the first thing that came to my head is a 3rd round pick. Like, I think that's crazy considering he's only played 1 game and he was a 5th or a 6th round pick last year. But I think that if you believe he can be a starting quarterback, like you gave that up for Sam Howell, and I'm not sure Sam Howell is the same level of prospect.
Jeff?
I think that's probably the right price point, which is crazy to say, but like we've been saying, take a flyer in the draft in the 3rd round for the last couple of years. This, at least you have a little data, and at least he's like a physical freak. I don't know I don't know if there's someone in this draft you feel great about drafting in the 3rd round.
That's my point. Before you go, Rob, I mean, if he was a prospect and he had shown the tape that he showed in that game in this draft, he'd be the number 1 quarterback taken.
Yeah. It's just so hard, isn't it, with Milton? Because, having watched him play at 2 schools and look like a player who deserved to go in the 6th round, and then he's drafted, and then he has that game, and it's hard to sort of compute in your head what's the reality here. And but this is the world we're in. The Seahawks don't have a long-term prospect. I'm not even talking about someone who's a guaranteed like Jaden Daniels type starter. They don't have anybody who is a could be on the roster, and they seem every year to be hesitant to draft someone like Milton in the 5th or the 6th round. It feels like Schneider's waiting for somebody to hit him square between the eyes and say, I can start in the NFL, for him to pull the trigger. And he took somehow, in part, I think, because he'd played a year in the NFL. So whenever you don't have that, you're kind of in this position. And this is a GM who spent, flipped 2 picks in the 2nd round and gave a 3rd up for Charlie Whitehurst. And I would suggest that probably Joe Milton showed more in 2 quarters of football than Charlie Whitehurst ever did. So there we go.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I'm going to do this. There's a bunch of ways I could do this, but I'm going to jump us right into a mock. And we're going to have our conversation about prospects through mock drafts. We're going to do a few of these guys as we go through this. We're going to use... I kind of liked... I've been using the different sims. I think NFL Mock Draft Database right now... I kind of like their big board better than some of the others. So we're gonna use that. I'm gonna put this up on the board for us all to see. And Rob, we're gonna put you in the driver's seat for this first go around. We're gonna go. Let's do like a 4-round mock. How about that? Get a little deeper. Get some of the other names. And first things first. Seahawks have the 18th pick. Before we even get to 18, Rob, if you could pick who was available to the Seahawks at 18, and don't say the guys they're going to be very clearly top 5, but like if you could pick a guy that could fall to the Seahawks at 18 that you would just run to turn the card in, who would it be?
Run to turn the card in. Do you know what? I don't think there's anybody, because I'm looking at the board here, and I think that all of the players that I kind of have in the legit range, which I have 8 players, I think they'll all be gone. So it's hard to say that there's somebody I would run to the podium for at 18. But the names that I've got at the top 8 that I've got are Genty, Burden, Loveland, Warren, Carter, Graham, Hunter, and Johnson. So if any of those lasted to 18, then I'd very seriously consider taking them.
Interesting. Well, let's go through and start this draft. We will see who's available and who's been taken. So we get to 18, and we'll be able to take a look at the trade offers in a second. So here you are. You got one of those names you mentioned somehow available.
Two of them are.
Yeah, you've got Starks, you've got Tyler Warren, you've got
Three of
them.
Scorton. Pretty decent list of guys available here. Do you run and turn one of these in? Do you try to make a trade? What do you do?
Well, it's a real problem because, as Jeff and I have discussed many a time, I can't really get behind the idea of another draft where the Seahawks take a player, and maybe even it is the best player. Like I can't stomach another draft where like there's another high pick at running back. As much as I love Ashton Genty, I really like Tyler Warren and I really like Colston Loveland. But sooner or later, the Seahawks are going to have to build an offensive line. They're going to have to build a line. And I don't know if I want to wait till pick 50 to put together this offensive line. So, I mean, in this situation, I'd probably be thinking more along the lines of trading down a little bit.
Okay.
And, sort of seeing if I can get good value there because there's some good players available.
There are.
Would somebody be prepared to jump up? The Ravens badly need apparently. I mean, I don't study them enough, but apparently they desperately need a safety, and Malachi Starks is there. Could you drop down to 27 with them? They don't seem to have many picks though.
What an odd offer.
Yeah, let's see if we can make a counter. If you want, we'll go down. Baltimore's who you want to talk to potentially. So give them one and what? Ask for their two.
Yeah. See if they'll do that.
Looks like they will do that. So we're going to make that trade.
Oh, great. Perfect.
All right. So now we are here at 27.
Mm-hmm.
And Tyler Warren just went to the Rams. Look what you've done, Rob. Look what you've done. You put Tyler Warren in L.A., you bastard. What are you thinking? All right. So here you are at 27. Are you tempted by Jalen Milroe?
No.
Tell us why.
He can't throw from the pocket. He's a great runner, and he to me he's played like a running back, playing quarterback for most of the year. But there's just too many issues there. He did not take a step forward at all under Kalen DeBoer. Pretty much everybody that Kalen DeBoer works with takes a step forward. I don't think Jalen Milroe did. Amazing athlete, great arm, but not someone I'd consider in round one in the slightest. I just don't think you can do it. I think he's more of the Malik Willis type of prospect than the Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels type. So not for me.
Yeah.
Not for me.
Yeah, I've considered him. I've compared him to Joe Milton in the sense of has one really elite tool. Milton's got the arm, not necessarily accurate, but he can throw it a mile. And Milroe's got the legs. I will say that Milroe, he's given me pause. I don't think I'd drop a first-round pick on the guy, but, man, based on what we were just talking about, there's no player in this draft that can add more with his legs than Jalen Milroe.
And he has got a big arm. There's no danger getting it down.
What the heck he's doing. His decision-making is awful. His accuracy is not great.
I see Justin Fields kind of with him.
Yeah.
I think
It's a good point, Jeff. Would you be better off taking a flyer on Justin Fields than you'd be on drafting Jalen Milroe with a high pick?
I think so. I don't love either of them because it's the same problem Rob brought up. They can run. Justin Fields to me is like the worst kind of quarterback because he makes these like highlight reel runs or he makes like this one throw like every year. And it's like, holy shit. And all these fans start falling for him. But then the rest of the game, he can't throw at all. And so he like sucks people in with that one play. And like it happened to the Bears and their fans for years. We're like, we can't move on from Justin Fields. We're not going to take CJ Stroud. And I worry Milroe with that running skill is the same thing where he's going to make like that one play that's amazing, but I don't see the Jaden Daniels. I don't see that. And I think that just puts you at a completely cap ceiling I think I'd rather
Yeah.
build the infrastructure up and take a flyer on Fields than the opposite.
I think
All right.
if you're gonna spend a first round pick on a quarterback, you've got to believe they can throw for a first down on 3rd and 10. And I just don't think Jalen Milroe can do that.
All right. So I don't know if, by the way, I don't know if this is a joke over here where it says Seattle's team needs and it's basically everything, or maybe that's just not highlighted. That's kind of funny. All right, so here's who they've got listed as IOL. If we look at O tackles, I guess we can look at this as well. Any of these names jump out to you as like, yeah, let's draft that guy in the first?
Yeah, I mean, they have got Cameron Williams way too high. That was the first thing I thought. He's like 34 there. Yeah, you can't do that. Okay, who is the offensive coordinator?
Who would you like to be the offensive coordinator?
Because if it's Clint Kubiak, then I'm probably going to think about taking Josh Conley here. But
say why?
Just because I think if you want to have that zone blocking system, which I don't know whether he does or not, actually, because they took Fuaga in round 1 last year, and he's 330 pounds, and they played him at left tackle. So I don't even know if that's a thing. But if you want to play that kind of system, if you want that athletic offensive line, Conley's undersized, but he's very athletic, very aggressive, then he would be a good fit for that. My preference would be to go big, physical, beat you up. There's a bunch of players in this draft class. Wyatt Millen at 41 is a good example of this, who just want to pancake everybody. They just want to stick you in the turf. Like, his feet are not very good. He's not very athletic, but he'll bury you. And that's kind of the offensive line I want to build. I want to build an O-line of horrible individuals. So I think Hank Fraley might be more inclined to do that. So I don't know. I don't. I'm kind of open to any of the offensive coordinator.
You got to make the call. You got to make the call. You're the GM.
Who are
any of these other names?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Membu as a barrier. He definitely is very physical. Who are the OTs left?
We just looked at the OTs. So there's Connerly, Cam Williams, Wyatt Millen, Emery Jones.
I like Bryce Abel, but he'll probably be there later. Okay, and who's the interior again? Sorry. Okay. Right, okay. I think in this situation, as much as I do want to build the offensive line, I'm not going to force it. I mean, I did see that Colston Loveland was still there. And I think if he's there at 27, this is just a preposterous value. So I will take him there.
All right. Talk to us about Colston Loveland, and then we will get to it at the 50th spot here.
Buried by a terrible Michigan passing game this year. Fantastic athlete, very fluid, excellent pass catcher. I think if just to look at him, he doesn't look the biggest, but I think he is a very good. I mean, he's from Michigan. When you actually look at AJ Barner, I don't think he looks the biggest. I think body types are very, very similar there in that regard. But Loveland's kind of like an A+ version of that. Much more athletic, much more willing, I think, as a blocker to block on the move. So I think Loveland has got the potential to be an extremely dynamic tight end, like a top starting tight end at the next level. I think Brock Bowers is on an island on his own, but if you're talking about, who could position themselves to be sort of in the next tier, I think Warren and Loveland have got the potential to do that coming into the league.
I really like the tight ends in this draft, guys. Like, I did a mock before you guys got on, and I mean, I like Harold Fannin. I think he's an interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing him at the Senior Bowl. I think Arroyo from Miami is also interesting, available probably later. So that's one of the things that, like, Tyler Warren's kind of one of my big draft crushes early on. I know Jeff feels the same way, but I'm also starting to feel like you could probably nab a 4th round, and you probably nab another AJ Barner, maybe higher ceiling guy later in the draft. So just something I'm wondering about.
Arroyo's really, really good. Luke Lachey is more of a blocking tight end, but again, he's another person who had to play on a team with no passing game. Iowa, I think he's a better athlete, great bloodlines. Is somebody who's probably going to be there round 3, round 4, and he's going to be just like the next really good Iowa tight end. So you've got him, you've got Arroyo. You've got the Evans at Notre Dame. You know, there's a whole bunch of guys in this draft class. So I don't think you have to take one early to get a good one. But if you get into the 27th pick and Colston Loveland and Tyler Warren are there, I mean, you know, I don't think they will be. But in this mock, they're there. So
now we hear that this is also interesting, guys. I mean, Jeff, we've talked about this before. You start looking at positional depth when you're making these calls in the first round. Last year, it was you better take, if you want a defensive tackle, you better take him in the first because there's not going to be many in the third where you have your next pick. And that was true. That was true. This year, it feels like guard, like you can get away. Even if you really want to draft a good guard, it feels like there's going to be a good one available at 50.
Yeah. It's great.
And the tackle to guard comfort options are really interesting.
Yep.
You've got
Isaiah Bond at receiver as well. Deion Walker's an interesting defensive lineman. Matthew Golden, another receiver that's interesting. Do not say Quinn Ewers. You can, but I'm going to argue like hell with you about him if you say him, Rob. I know you probably want to. Maybe you want to say him. You could say him. I'm going to argue. I think he sucks. Who else? Anyone else here jumping up for you? Tate Ratledge. I've definitely got a draft crush on Tate Ratledge. I don't know if he's excited. Oh yeah.
I thought he flattered to deceive a little bit this year. I thought the other guy.
The way he looks, his vibe. Man.
The look is very much of a Dan Campbell offensive lineman.
Yeah. Like
I think there's something there. I think there's 12. I've got 12 guards or tackle to guard converts that I've got in round either fringe first, second, or third. So you've got a whole bunch of guys. You know, I can see there's a whole bunch of them still left in here. And you know, Membu is a tackle for Missouri, but just watch his tape. Like he just absolutely destroys people, and that's kind of what I'm looking for. The only problem is that there's a guy below him there, Donovan Jackson, who's played a lot of left guard, and you know, I've seen the Seahawks take Ethan Posick and try and play him at right tackle and then guard, and then we'll give him a go at center. And I've seen them moving these guys around. We've traded for Gabe Jackson, so we'll move Damian Lewis to left guard. You know, I'm ready to take a guy. I know he's played a lot of left tackle this year because he had to, in much the way that Joe Tooney did last night for the Chiefs. But Jackson's a left guard, and he played really well this year. I think he's a plug and play guy. So I'm going to take Donovan Jackson here and just feel, right, okay, I've addressed the offensive line.
I think that's a guy that some people think could be your first round pick, and they'd be good about it. I was on with, had a Ryan Fowler of the Draft Network on, and that was the guy that he had pegged to Seattle. So
he's a top 40 pick, without a doubt.
Well, and the interesting thing here is I think it's the first time, Jeff, we've done a trade back so far because we just haven't done a lot of these mocks yet. We'll obviously do 1,000 of them by the time the draft's done, but
this is an intriguing scenario.
I mean, this is pretty nice, right? Like, if you're looking at, you get Loveland and Jackson with your first two picks, you're sitting there 9 picks later at 59. You can go and get your next, your Tyler Lockett, you know, replacement potentially. You could go and look at defensive
50.
line. You could go and maybe take a quarterback if there's one that you really like. You could look at edge. There's a lot of interesting options here. Shamar Turner being available this late seems a little crazy. Jordan Birch. I think Rob and I have similar feelings about Jordan Birch being an interesting player. I don't know about second round, but interesting edge player.
I mean, I'd be tempted to run to the podium for Jordan Birch. The thing is that the Seahawks need that little bit of just that little bit of something special on that defensive line. You know, they've got a lot of guys, but I don't know if they have somebody that in a couple of years you could imagine how on earth did the league let him get to round 2? And when you watch Jordan Birch, like the guy at Shamar Stewart at Texas A&M, right? Okay, he's not a finisher. Like he'll get into the backfield. He's a nearly man. He nearly makes the play so many times, and it's frustrating. And the difference between him and Jared Ivey and Jordan Birch is that they're better at making the plays and finishing the plays. And he's just got so much physical upside. He's got the production to go with it. I mean, the only thing that's making me pause somewhat for Jordan Birch is the fact that Golden is there, the receiver from Texas.
I've been staring at him.
And I mean, if you really want to game the system, Birch will probably be there for you, your next pick, or could be.
Could be. I think he's 70
Golden
for
is
82.
not. There's no way Golden would be. There's no way Deion Walker would be. Jeff, what are your thoughts?
Deion Walker's a funny one because he's got a Christian Haynes body situation going on.
He does. Jeff, what are your thoughts?
Look, I'm always a trenches first guy. I think you always got to take the trenches. But Matthew Golden in this draft has been jumped out to me since I really started diving in. I don't even know if he'll be there at 59 by the time we get to the actual draft. I saw Matt Miller the other day talk about his guys are ready.
It's a first rounder.
Yeah, I think he's a borderline first rounder. So I've been staring at him for the last 10 minutes while you guys were talking. I would take him. I think he's just a hit in this draft, but I would even consider doubling up on offensive line at this spot. But this is where not knowing what they do in free agency, not knowing, but if Birch comes in, they're probably going to lose Draymond Jones this offseason. They're going to need depth at that spot. I don't know if Roy Robertson-Harris is going to be brought back, or maybe he's at a lower number. So I don't know if Nwosu is going to be back. So defensive line depth is an issue that they're going to deal with as they turn over. And they're still missing what Rob's kind of talking about in that group, kind of that piss and vinegar kind of guy. Derek Hall's a physical freak, but seems like just a genuinely nice guy. But Jaron Reed, I don't know if he's going to be back. They can use another guy like that.
I'm taking Jordan Birch.
Okay, we're taking Jordan Birch. Can I ask you, are there any cornerbacks that you find worth taking up here?
Okay, so
I'll show you who's left here.
Who's left?
Cornerback.
Yeah, I think Amos should go in the second round, but he's not somebody that I want to take. Thomas is quite an interesting guy because he's very big and he's got a little bit stiff, but he gets around the ball quite a lot. Burke's he's got the talent to be a top 10 pick, but he's all over the place. So I think I will wait on the position at cornerback.
Okay. All right. So I think I heard Birch. Yes.
I'll take Birch. And the reason is I have a reason for that coming up later.
Okay. All right. There goes Jordan Birch. I love the attention to edge. I think the Seahawks, Jordan Birch is one of the only guys that I think he strikes me as a guy that people could actually say was a first round talent when he goes. Yeah. And I'm not actually saying it's out of the realm of possibility that by the time the combine's done, he doesn't sneak himself into the edge of the first round. I think he's one of the best edges in this class. I wouldn't put him in the Jared Verse category at all, but similar kind of body type, similar kind of, plays with a lot of strength. And I just think he's a playmaker. So I'm a big fan of that pick for sure.
I think you're right. I think 20 to 32, 20 to 35, you could easily see him going in that range. Yeah. Especially when he tests, like you say, he's going to test at the combine. He's going to blow everything up. So that's typically when, and he might have a great Senior Bowl. So that's another one that will help him.
All right, so here we are, pick 82 in the third round. Where do you go next? You've gone tight end, you've gone guard, and you've gone edge.
Can we have a look at the centers, see who's left?
Yes, we can look at the centers. I don't know if it allows me to limit to just centers. I think it's just interior O-line.
Jake Majors is there, but I mean, why they've got him at 120, I don't know. And Jared Wilson at 123 is too low as well. And Seth McLaughlin, I tell you what, Seth McLaughlin would be well in my eyesight here as well, but he's got an Achilles injury. But if you watch his tape, in terms of offensive linemen who get after you, who just make your life a misery, McLaughlin did that for Ohio State. It was quite fun to watch at times. Jay Majors is a terrific player and would be a great pick here. But what can you get to the all list and just let me have a quick look at best player available? It says according to this. Let's have a scroll down. Wow, that's very high. I don't. Well, somebody else that.
I actually like Denzel Burke. Crazy. I think that's a good call out. I've liked the way he's played.
Yeah, he's got
Jackson Dart.
Jackson Dart.
What do you think about Mr. Dart?
Well, have you seen any of him? Because the thing about Jackson Dart is, his downfield throwing is extremely attractive. It's appealing. It's pretty to watch. He makes some really pretty throws. And he's a better athlete than people realize. But my word, it's just so hard when like the Kentucky game and he just couldn't do anything. And then in the second half of the Florida game, I think they scored 3 points. They needed to win that game to get to the playoffs. And he threw 2 interceptions and had another interception called back. And I don't know if he's got it, I don't know if he's got that extra bit of something that's going to, great you can throw downfield in a clean pocket in Lane Kiffin's scheme. But, when everything's a bit muddier and everything's a bit quicker and you've got a big game on the line, are you looking at that guy and thinking he's going to be a difference maker? His numbers are not amazing. He's not, and he was trying to get back to Ole Miss, which I thought was interesting. He was trying to go back there. He may still go back there. I think it's very interesting. The Senior Bowl have got 7 quarterbacks listed right now, which makes me wonder whether he might just at the last minute end up. He's applied for a waiver to get back to Ole Miss. So the whole quarterback class for me is it's a difficult one to think that there's going to be an answer there. So I'm going to avoid that.
All right, I want to make one case here. Tez Johnson for me. I don't think he's 90. I think he's higher than that. I think he's a better receiver than that. And the constant comp I keep seeing from folks is Tank Dell for Tez Johnson. And talk about like the kind of receiver I think the Seahawks need to add to their arsenal. Obviously Troy Franklin was a pretty big disappointment this year from Oregon, and you got to wonder with Oregon and their offense and all that kind of things. But I think he's an interesting guy at receiver.
I think this is the reason I didn't want to take Golden at 50. It's because, or 59 or whatever it was, because I think there's some real value to be had at receiver. And I've got a list of guys that I think will still be available in round 4. One of them is just popped onto the screen. So I'm going to leave that position for now. I am going to go with the trenches again. I am going to take Jake Majors and feel really good about that. I think Donovan Jackson and Jake Majors could be your starting left guard and your starting center for a long time.
Jake Majors.
Oh, hang on a minute.
Sorry.
It's too late. It's too late.
The card's been handed in.
Kobe Bryant.
There is another Kobe Bryant.
Kobe Bryant. And here we are with your last pick.
For?
Who was out? What?
Who are you going to hold up for there?
I just completely forgot that one of my favorite players, and we've not talked about him. And he's in this kind of simulates. I mean, I don't think he'll be there when it comes draft time. But have you seen the UCLA linebacker Carson Schwessinger?
He was there. Man. Oh, that would have been a great pick.
I'm guessing he would have been there, and I'm just thinking I'd never even remembered to look. He's gone now, obviously, but what a player! Did you know what he talks about? If you're talking about like a top 5 player,
119. Oh, yeah,
119. Yeah,
if you're talking, I mean, he reminds me of Logan Wilson, who's with the Bengals. He's I think of all the linebackers, he
went in that range too at the draft. I think he went in like the 90s.
I mean, Logan Wilson was a player I really liked, and Schwessinger is just, you watch him and you think, oh, there's so many similarities there. And
I think linebacker's a sneaky need for the team. I mean, we're going to get Ernest Jones back. You feel good about Tyrese Knight. That's great. They're both young. After that, you feel good about Drake Thomas as your only backup? Like, I don't think you do. So yeah, I think inside linebacker, first 4 rounds, I think is open for that position.
And look, with Schwessinger, you know what you're going to get from him. Like, there's not going to be a problem having him and Tyrese Knight and Ernest Jones. Like, there's not going to be any issue with that. I'd be quite interested to see how Mike McDonald will work with those guys. So, he's a quality player. So at 136, I am gonna go with a receiver here. If you head over to there, so a few of them have gone, but I guarantee there'll be one left that I like, or maybe not.
Brew McCoy.
Wow, a lot of them have gone, haven't they?
Yeah, it looks like. Here, I'll show you who's gone. I'll show you who's gone too, so you can kind of see.
Okay, so the ones that I was thinking of potentially still being here were Ty Felton, who's just gone, Ricky White, Ja'Cory Brooks, like Pat Bryant. I don't think some of the guys that I like are on here. So, for example, I've not seen Josh Kelly, who's at Texas Tech, who used to be with Washington State.
Do you want to look at corners or linebacker or? QB.
Who's left at quarterback?
Will Howard.
Is Will Howard there?
Yeah.
Will Howard's
Kyle
there.
McCord.
Dylan Gabriel's there.
And the
sure.
other, do you know the quarterback I'm going to take? Who I want to take here? It's Seth Hennigan.
Seth Hennigan, down here from Memphis.
Yes, 400.
We're getting an F for this pick.
Oh, you just got a D. That's not so bad. All right, how do you feel? How do you feel about this draft? How do you feel now? You've seen how it laid out, how it fell down to you.
I mean, I think it's pretty good. You've got one of the best players in the draft in the first round. You've got two offensive linemen who are, I think are really good players who can start quickly. You've got Jordan Burge. We talked about him. And then, there was a lot of quarterbacks there that, you get into sort of round 4, round 5 that I'd be happy to take. The reason I've picked Seth Hennigan here is just he's got the arm. He's got a bit of mobility. He's got the ability to throw on the run. He's not had a fantastic supporting cast at Memphis. I believe he set a record for wins with Memphis while he's been there. He set the AAC record for yards and touchdowns, I think, while he was there. He is a really good player who perhaps by not being at one of the bigger teams is being somewhat overlooked. But he's big, he's strong, he's somewhat athletic, he can get the ball downfield. And, Will Howard can do the same thing, but I just wanted to mix things up a little bit.
Jeff, give me your reaction to this. How would you feel if this was the Seahawks' first 4 rounds?
I love taking 2 O-line in the first 4 rounds. I think they got to complement that with their free agency. We've talked about that on both your shows a lot. Donovan Jackson at 50 would make this draft a huge win for me. I don't know how realistic it is. I think he's an option at 18. Loveland's a guy I would be open to. I think, especially if Noah Fant's not back, tight end there makes a lot of sense. I think the value there is really, really good. And I think there's not a lot of guys where we passed on it. I was just be like, that would be devastating. Tyler Booker going 24 is interesting.
Yeah, my reaction to this draft, a couple things. Primarily the trade is what got my attention in that, man, that felt good. Having 50 and 59 felt really good, and it felt like you're going to get more quality with 2 seconds in this draft than you are with 118. 18.
That was my other takeaway. In this draft, like the difference between 18 and 27 seems basically nothing. So I don't know if people are going to trade up, but someone might love GT, someone might love one of the tight ends. Getting the 2 seconds there in this draft, and I can know someone's going to go in that range and everyone's going to kill Schneider for it because they're going to miss on one of those seconds. But just from like a draft process standpoint, the trade down seems like the way to go in this year.
Yeah, I mean, Shamar Stewart's a guy that is getting a ton of buzz right now. People are like, why isn't this guy a top 5 pick? And then they're like, well, did you see his production?
He doesn't finish. He's like he's so close all the time. And that's the frustrating thing. And you think, well, how does, if he isn't finishing in college, is he Daniil Hunter or is he, because these are the same problem. Like Daniil Hunter couldn't finish.
And then and what Rob said yesterday, I couldn't help but think watching Will Anderson and watching how many people that draft year, and Rob was going crazy, I think, that year. How many people fell for Tyree Wilson?
Yes.
Everyone's like, Tyree Wilson's a better player. And I don't know if that's the Shamar Stewart of this draft, but Tyree Wilson's basically he's like barely playing on that Raiders D-line. People had him that year over Will Anderson because of the tools. Will Anderson's the best player in the game yesterday.
With Shamar Stewart, you watch Texas A&M and you sit down. I mean, I've specifically sat down just to watch him. And you're thinking, he's not in this series. And I'm like, I'm not being funny, but how good is the Texas A&M defensive line that he's being spelled, every 3 series? Like I think for a top player, if you're going to take a first round defensive lineman, you can't have the college team taking him off the field, in big games, in close games. Like give him the 4th quarter off when you're 40 points up. Taking him out of the game in the first, second quarter for me just felt like I'm not sure how many first round picks get spelled that way.
Yeah, my favorite pick of your draft by far was Donovan Jackson at 50. I don't know how realistic that is, but if you get that, that's a huge get. And then the other thing for me is I think I'm getting pretty close to a convicted feeling that the only tight end that I would take in the first round is Tyler Warren. And not because I don't think Colston Loveland's a really good player, but like the difference between Colston Loveland and some of the guys you can get in rounds 2, 3, and 4. I just don't know that it's worth it relative to the other positions that I would really want to get the best of those players earlier on. So that was the other thing I just kind of was grappling with, but it was great. And I'm really eager to have Jeff take a turn at the wheel and have Rob critique and add some thoughts here. So let's do that. Before we do it, let me thank Rick R for his generosity, giving away 20 Hawk Blogger memberships. Rick is really like one of the most consistently generous people in chat, and really, really appreciate it. If you get one of these free memberships, consider paying it forward and giving one to somebody else. We got a super chat here from Matthew McManus, who says, how about DK to the Patriots for Milton and a late round pick? I think the Patriots would jump at that. I don't think that's something the Seahawks would do, quite honestly.
That's a bad trade.
Here, I want to be really clear. I think the Seahawks are going to sign DK. I don't think there's much question. That's generally my thought. At the same time, guys, this wide receiver draft is crap. The free agency for wide receivers, pretty much crap.
We went through it
There's
yesterday.
a lot of teams that are going to need a receiver. DK Metcalf is never going to be more valuable than. I don't think it's crazy that if you look at this draft and you look at how thin it is in the just overall talent pool, I don't think it's crazy that someone will give you a first round pick for DK Metcalf this offseason. I don't think that's crazy.
Pittsburgh?
I mean, maybe, or New England. Like, I don't know. New England's not going to give theirs, but
New England would give you the high second, I think, though.
Right. So, like, if you're thinking those terms, then you get a second from New England, which is basically a first, and Joe Milton. What would you guys say if that was an offer?
Okay, so hard. I mean, the thing that bothers me a little bit about all of this is that, do I trust the Seahawks to use the the Frank Clark
But
trade?
you can't play that game. I mean, you have to. They're making the decisions anyway.
Yeah,
they're the ones that drafted DK Metcalf.
Well, true enough.
And JSN and Tyler Lockett.
I mean, I'm not against it. I think if you're going to trade DK Metcalf, it has to be a good pick.
Yeah.
It has to be a good, because the $20 million that you're going to have to pay him to go and play for somebody else alone means that you need to get something back. I don't think a second round pick is sufficient. And you may well be right, Brian, that somebody would be prepared. I mean, he's still at a good age, isn't he? What is he, 27, I think?
27.
So he's not old, whereby you wouldn't think of giving up that first round pick.
I don't think you get a first round pick in any other situation, but this is a draft where I think there's maybe like 8 to 11 legitimate first round talents.
Yeah.
So I think the picks in the 20s are not really as valuable as a normal first round pick would be in another season. And I just don't think, I think add into that, there's not many good receivers in this draft. Add into that there's not many good wide receiver free agents. I just think you'll probably get the most you could. I also think it's all a moot point. I don't think they're going to trade DK Metcalf. So
no, I don't either. No.
All right, let's get to. Oh, actually, there was one other thing that came up while we were talking. Noah Berman says I would trade DK for 8 and 18 for 4 and Milton to try to get Abdul Carter.
That's an optimistic offer. It's a very optimistic offer.
I don't think they're. I mean, the trade points there, Noah, just don't work out.
In half a second, but I don't think.
No,
I think Ron Wolf's son would be fired very quickly.
I mean, number 4 overall pick is worth like most of the Seahawks draft. You know.
Yeah,
like,
Bill Carter's the best player in this draft, in my opinion.
Maybe.
In my opinion, I think he's the best player.
He's 1 or 2. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we can have that debate another day. I think
Brian? Who's
Travis Hunter's pretty damn good.
Yeah,
and
I just think Abdul Carter, first year playing edge, I think that guy's upside is.
no doubts. He's gonna
Mason,
be really
Mason
good.
Graham is in the running as well.
Yeah.
For me.
Really, that's interesting. As a number, like as first, I think he's a really good player. I don't know if I have him quite that high. All right, so let's get Jeff on the clock here. Let's get Jeff on the clock. Jeff, we're gonna get you started here, and Rob and I are gonna just rag on you mercilessly as you do this. So, the Rams want your pick. Here we are. Once again, Ashton Genty is available. Malachi Stark's available. Jalen Walker, Tyler Warren is available. How do you guys feel about Nick Scourton? I don't feel like he fits Mike McDonald's like size criteria for
I think he's the, you know, can you remember Boogie Basham or whatever he was called? And you can remember AJ Epineza? He's the next bigger defensive end who everyone thinks is going to go in the first round, goes in the second and doesn't really amount to anything.
Yeah, I was looking at Epinesa's. Brian, I think you put out like the tier of edge rushers when you were putting at Boye and Hall. I remember Epinesa from the COVID draft, and I'm like, please do not drop this guy. He has no juice. He's like a good run stuffer, but he was being mocked. Him and like Gross Matos. I remember that draft year. He was like in like the bottom left quadrant for edge rushing. So he doesn't interest me really at all.
Yeah, I don't like squatty kind of. He's not a twitchy guy.
No.
And he's not like a speed to power guy either. He's just kind of strong, and he's not it for me.
Let me scroll down a little here.
Scroll down. Do you want me to look at any position groups? Walter Nolan. How do you guys feel about Walter Nolan? He's another guy that's all over the place. People love his athleticism. Obviously, a little bit, question about whether he's as good as his tape.
He's somebody who, with TJ Sanders is the other one at South Carolina, who are one of the few defensive tackles in this draft who have taken over a game. And he is, when he's on his best, like he was against Florida, like unstoppable. Same as TJ Sanders was against Georgia last season. There is something there. I think someone like a Minnesota or somebody is going to take him in the late first round, and it would not surprise me if he ends up being one of the best picks in the draft.
Yeah, he's definitely someone I'm going to be watching closely in a couple weeks. Interested to see. All right, Jeff. Are you thinking pick? Are you thinking trade down?
I think the trade down would be ideal, but maybe we'll want to change it up just to see what happens.
All right. By the way, Mike Green is also a guy.
He's intriguing.
He's really interesting. Like he could be a guy that goes too high because people get enamored with his numbers, his combine numbers, and then he can't really transition it to the NFL. The jump in levels too much, but he also could be special. Like he's one of the guys that has a really high ceiling. It feels like. Yeah. All right. So what do you want to do here, Jeff?
I'm going to go with the Jeff school of drafting, even though I think trading down is probably the move here. We just saw. I'm going Tyler Warren. I think he is in this draft where we're kind of creating scenarios of who's maybe good. He's one of the 10 guys. I think it's just, I know what he is. He's projectable. I think if you're going to move off DK at some point or you're losing Lockett, having that tight end opens up a lot of the offense. I don't love the idea of taking in another draft. I would crush a team for taking a tight end with all their interior offensive line needs. But in this draft, I just like the guy. I think he is great value for what the Seahawks do need offensively.
He'll go in the top 10.
I don't think he's going to be there. I was saying that to our chat the other day. I think the Colts are the floor for him. I see already connections to.
I think the Niners are the floor.
No.
Potentially, I was wondering about the Niners. The Niners, though, Trent Williams. Would you be more upset if the Niners got their George Kittle replacement or their Trent Williams replacement?
I don't think there is a Trent Williams replacement in this draft.
There isn't, but if they get someone who is a high quality left tackle, I think that extends their window. I'm not sure if a tight end does that. That's my I guess I wouldn't be happy if they take him. They definitely could. I certainly had the same thought, Rob. I'm worried about they're going to get like Kelvin Banks or like someone at left tackle that's just going to be like a good player. That's going to make me very upset.
They're going to get, but I don't know. I'm just not that worried about the Niners right now.
I think that's fair too. All right, Jeff. So here you are at 50. You could trade back to any of these names.
The thing is, like, I'm taking Donovan Jackson here if he's there, but again, I don't think it's very realistic.
All right. Well, do you want to see some of the other interior offensive linemen?
Yeah. See, there's a pretty big gap.
Yeah,
Let's flip it up. Let's take Membu.
Okay.
Okay, and don't
This
let
is
me.
who you want?
No. Go to the interior.
Membu. Yes, got it.
Yeah, let's go with him.
Okay.
Good player.
Yeah, I
What
think
do you what do you guys like about Membu?
very physical. I think he fits. I think you know exactly what position he can play. I think when what's his name was on your show, Brand Thorne the other day, he was talking about him as like a top 15 potential guy, and I think it's a little high. I think Rob, where are you on him?
So he reminds me, he's like Wyatt Millum, but with better feet. So when you watch him sort of trying to block on the move, his feet are in line with his body. He can move. He can shut off the inside counts, but he can get outside as well. So he can, I think, depending on how the length tests out, stay at right tackle. But I just kept thinking he could be a really dominant guard kicking inside, which is why they've got him as an interior offensive lineman. But he and Millum are probably the two most aggressive offensive linemen in this draft. They're the two that are the pancake machines. They're Tyler Booker. They're probably the people who you see plastering opponents on the floor the most. So I think Membu does that, then that's a great pick.
And me and Rob have talked about this on our streams a lot. Just they don't really have like the piss and vinegar in their own line. Like Charles Cross, is a pretty soft-spoken guy. Abe Lucas, when he's playing, can be. Their guards, like when they even had Sweezy and Fluker that one year, like they were hard to play against, and they ran the ball a lot that year. And like I remember when Ryan Jensen went to Tampa, like what he did to that, just the dynamic. And I think Membu. So I'm kind of looking for guys like that can really change the dynamic of their line. Like they got to get better players, obviously, but I think they need a guy like kind of an ass kicker. You saw what Bradley Bozeman did with that fight. Like I love that. So I want a guy like that. I heard not Dane. I heard Brand Thorne talking about him, so I started reading into him a little bit more. I would take Donovan Jackson if he was there, realistically.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I like mixing it up a little bit. So then you're down here at the third round, 82. What are you thinking here?
I'm going with the linebacker. Get me Schlesinger. I'm going to get a bad grade. I think
you're just kissing up to Rob. You know he's going to grade your draft, and you just want to make sure you get
that's an A. That's an A star
I'm
pick.
To Nathan there. I think Nathan brought him up the other day.
No, actually, I did.
Oh, you did.
I did, and
I agree with you. I think that's a sneaky need. I don't think you want to just assume Tyrese Knight's your guy. You're settled there. I think the competition would be great. I think they need more dudes like that. You've seen what the Chiefs have done with all these linebackers. I think that at 82 is really good value.
Fantastic.
All right. So what positions are you looking at next?
Go back. I want to double up on interior O-line.
Okay. Do you want to look at some of the O tackles, see if there's any converts
Yeah, see
here?
if there's any convert. Jack Nelson was the guy I liked. It seems a little high.
What do you guys think about Jonah Monheim?
Not crazy about him.
Say more.
Go ahead.
Well, I've got him day 3. I just, when I watched him play, I just didn't see enough of that, aggression. I don't think that he moves as well as Jake Majors and some of the other centers in the draft. I just, for me, didn't really get a great feel for him. It was him, and there was Jake Slaughter that I kind of just think the day 3 centers. Now, if they test well, maybe you just sort of think, well, okay, there's the potential there. But it's such a weak center draft, given there's a few guys who didn't turn pro in the end and have really sort of depleted the ranks here. So I think really it comes down to Majors or Wilson, and McLaughlin would be like a red shirt guy.
Yeah. That's why I like Ryan Kelly as a free agent. I think he's a bit of an older player, but I think they kind of need a guy like that in the middle of their line.
Yeah.
All right. Where are you thinking, Jeff?
I'm going to take a shot at quarterback. I've just been crushing John for not doing this for years. I'll take some of the fun ones just went. I'll go with Dylan Gabriel. I'll take a shot there.
I like him. I think Dylan Gabriel obviously has got the size issues that everyone's going to talk about. He's played more than Bo Nix did in college. I I think he's the highest floor quarterback, that you could realistically get a shot at. The question is, what's his ceiling? And I think he's got some moxie. He's got some movement to him. He's not really likely to be a franchise level quarterback. I don't think it's crazy that he could find his way to it, but I don't hate that pick. Where are you on him, Rob?
Well, I think part of the issue with him is, I think as time has gone on, we kind of felt like shorter quarterbacks were succeeding. And now, as we've kind of gone on a few years, we've seen a few that have struggled. And I think that's part of the issue. And while Kyler Murray, obviously an unbelievable arm at Oklahoma, was just an unbelievable athlete in general, he still struggles somewhat, playing behind lines. And the thing about Gabriel is he is athletic. He can throw in the move. He is creative. But I'm just not sure he's got that upside to sort of take it to the next level. When I watched him, I kind of felt like he was a poor man's Tua. And that's not just because he's left-handed. It just felt to me as if you are going to draft him, you have to have a system that will be very much accommodating of a player like that. And I'm just not sure that John in particular, I think John wants 6'4", runs like a gazelle, launches it with a cannon. So I'm not sure that they're going to go with a Dylan Gabriel type.
How did you feel about Jeff's draft? Membu, Schlesinger.
Love Membu, love Schlesinger, love Warren. I think probably all three of those players are going to go probably 15 picks earlier than they are. And in the case of Schlesinger, I think he could be a top 45 pick when it's all said and done. So, I mean, if you're getting players, like based on watching all of those guys, I think it's a great draft. So I'll happily take the small Oregon Duck in round 4 to just chuck one into the mix.
The baby duck. You guys got time for me to run through one real quick?
Well, hold on. What do you think of my draft?
I like Warren. Obviously, like I would probably pick a different guard in the second round. And I think I probably would have considered trading down in the second round to pick up maybe an extra third round pick. But I like that. I like Gabriel and I like Schlesinger. Like, I don't know if I like Schlesinger in the third round, though. I don't know if he's going to be available later than that. So you might just have to realistically take him there. I think wide receiver is a bigger need in my list than it is for you two guys. Like,
well, for me, if you're drafting Warren, I don't see then it becomes your fourth target.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Not a huge need to me.
I think that's a fair point. It depends on how they utilize those guys, and it's been a while since I've seen them actually utilize tight end as a third target. But I think that's a totally fair counter.
I think for me, the theme of the offseason, I want to send 2 offensive linemen free agency, and then one of the top 2 picks in the draft.
I'm at the. It depends on who you get in free agency, but definitely at least one in free agency who's starting level, known starter, and then, I think I'm pretty close to not wanting them to draft an offensive lineman in the first round. Like, I think that would honestly be a mistake, given where I've seen things now. I don't think that they should be locked into having to play a rookie next year. And if you draft them in the first round, it better be someone that you just know is an ass kicker. And I'm not sure. I think there's a lot of good prospects, but I think there's a lot of good second, third round prospects that are potentially going to go in the late first. I'd rather than pick some of the other positions there.
That was exactly my rationale. That's why I think Warren at 18, he just turned the card.
Yeah, I would give your draft a B+. It would be my grade for your.
I'll take that for my first one.
Yeah, I think it was very good. All right, I'll run through this quickly, and you guys can harass me mercilessly. So I'm gonna trade back. I know if Kelvin Banks was there, I would probably take him because I just think that guy is really good. I see Rob. You look like you want to say something.
I think Banks is. He reminds me of Elijah Vera Tucker, but maybe a healthier version. So I think that'd be a great left guard.
Yeah, he's nasty and like powerful. Like certainly an interesting player. All right, so there's a lot of interesting guys here. I'm going to trade back because I really liked what that felt like when we did it before. I'm even going to copy. Well, let's see. We went to Baltimore. Let's. What does Buffalo have here? They're 30.
Well, I guess today, yeah.
What does Detroit have? 28. 28 and 60. Now let's go Baltimore. I liked that before. Let's go 27 and 59 for 18. Done. Don't have to think about it.
Oh.
Here we are at 27.
Not again.
And what are you laughing at?
I just heard you sigh when you saw Tyler Booker. So
I'm not going to take him here. I'm comfortable with who's going to be available later on. Connerly is the one guy that for me, I could kind of make that case because I think he helps on both sides. I'm going to go way far afield. I'm taking Mike Green. I'm taking an edge player, has a potential high ceiling, could be a massive bust. And I'm going to take him in the first round. This is going to be, you guys are going to have a lot to say about this draft. I know you are. All right. So here we are at 50. You know what I'm going here. I'm turning in the card for Jonas Avenea. I love him. I think he's going to be a great guard. I think he's the closest thing to Dominic Pooney, but a little bit stronger. So I love him. And then I'm going to go here. Ooh. See, I could look at Harold Fannin Jr. as particularly appealing. Let's take a look. Isaiah Bond's interesting. Savion Williams is. Tez Johnson's kind of interesting. Tight end. Like, they've got Arroyo way too low. I could completely fuck with this system and just like take him in the 4th round and look better, but I think that's a little bit unfair. Defensive line. I'm tempted to copy Rob, but I'm going to roll the dice. I don't have the guts that he did, or I don't have the certainty that he did. All right, so what I'm going to do here, I am going to take, this is tough. I'm going to take Isaiah Bond. We're going to take a receiver early. I'm going to see how that feels. As you could tell, like, this is mainly just me trying to learn, but how this feels as I go through it. But positional wise, I kind of like that. Then it'd be really hard for me not to take Tate Ratledge here. The vibes on that guy are so good. Denzel Burke's appealing to me here. Did we lose our edge guy? Is Birch gone?
Yep.
Oh, you bastards. Doing it. Rob was right.
Tight end.
Rob was right. Yeah, tight end is really the way to go, although I just took a receiver. Like, I could get Arroyo. That would be, I think, a really good ad. Gunnar Helm. I'm not as big on Gunnar Helm as a lot of people are. What do you guys think about Luke Lachey? Like, every Iowa tight end. I don't know much about him, but I'm curious. Anyone have any?
It's a Rob guy. Rob's been talking about him for months.
Yeah, he's a really good blocker. He is more athletic than people realize, but Iowa just can't throw the ball. They just did not even try for most games. They just hand it off to the running back Caleb Johnson, and just he was pretty much the whole offense. So Lachey's role was reduced to he'd have like one catch for 10 yards most games because he was just a blocking tight end. But I've got a feeling that when he gets to the NFL, he's going to have a much more expanded role as a receiver, and that he could be the next really good tight end from Iowa. His dad was a first-round offensive lineman back in the day, so he's kind of got the NFL bloodlines there. He's a really good player.
All right. So here's my read on what's happened for the Seahawks over the last few years. And I'm just going to say this before I make this next pick. I think the Seahawks spent the most of their best draft capital and most of their best free agent dollars on the defense. And I think we've actually seen the defense have a pretty good young core and start to rise in the rankings. I think they've got to spend their best capital potentially on offense. And so after using the first round pick on defense and then going 2 picks on offense, I want to try to stay on the offensive side of the ball. Makes me uncomfortable because the players I want to go Schlesinger here is kind of where I'd want to go. But instead, I'm going to throw a dart. I'm going to pick Jackson Dart here at quarterback early in this draft and do what I keep saying that they should do, which is, take a shot on a quarterback and see if I think I'm not sold on him. I think for all the reasons Rob mentioned, but he's got some interesting upside. And so I think more interesting upside than Dylan Gabriel, even though I like Dylan Gabriel quite a bit. All right. So then last pick, and then you guys can unleash on me. Oh yes. Okay. Lucked out. And there's Schlesinger there. Easy choice. Done. There is my draft. All right. No holds barred. Let me know what you guys think. Rob, you go first.
Well, the Mike Green 17 sacks is 17 sacks, isn't it? And I think when you sort of see him play the way he did against Ohio State, that was reassuring. He's one of those, though. It's whenever you get a Marshall play, you want to see him test. You want to see him at the Senior Bowl, and when we see those two things, that'll confirm. I've got him in this kind of range in my last mock draft, so I think this is kind of where he will go. But you want to see him have a good Senior Bowl. You want to see him test. Savaiinaea, I think he's a very likable player. I've got him right in the mix with everybody else in that sort of 20 to 35, 40 range. There's a whole bunch of offensive linemen are going to go in that range. The only thing that I found with him is that I want to see him finish more. Like he looks, just to look at him, you'd think he's going to be a killer. And then you watch on tape and I thought he's very good, getting into position, holding his point. He doesn't get pushed back very much. But can you please just stick someone on his arse? That's kind of what I'm hoping for. Maybe that's just something that's the way he was coached. Maybe that is in there. Maybe they didn't want him to be aggressive. I would have just loved to have seen a little bit more violence on tape. Isaiah Bond, I have to say, I think he is a mirage, really. I think he's somebody who, when I was watching Texas, he always left me wanting more. He was in and out of the team with injuries. He never really delivered on all of the hype. And then as more you watch Golden, you realize Golden's the guy.
Yes,
Golden's
agreed.
The guy for Texas. Bond just felt like a fast guy who never really delivered on that. And then we've talked about Dart and Schlesinger. I think Schlesinger's an unbelievable player. And Dart, if you can take Jackson Dart in round 3, it's a fair enough shot, isn't it? Like there's not. If you take him in round 1, and people are saying he's going to go in round 1 now, there's a lot of people saying, I don't know if you listen to a lot of the draft, the Todd McShays.
Yeah.
Who was the other person I listened to the other day? There was somebody else who said the feeling within the league is that Dart is going to end up going in the second half of round 1. And if the Seahawks take him at 18, it'll be I'm not sure about that.
You do not bet. You not spend a first round pick on that guy.
But if you get him in round 3, I don't see what the problem is with that.
All right, Jeff, hit me. What do you think?
I like it. I was looking at PFF this morning. Mike Green went 8th in their PFF report. It reminds me a lot of a Tampa Bay draft for whatever reason. Tampa Bay is one of my favorite drafting teams. Like they just typically they were balanced risk reward. Obviously, the question I have here is is there enough quality in 50-59? I'm still trying to figure those guys out. But Mike Green, the more I've kind of dived into him, in this draft where there's not a lot of potential home runs, he's one of them. And so I love the idea of chasing that quality. I like the trade down. PFF, I know he's already flying up. Trevor Sikkema does their board. He's got him 8th overall in the mock I just looked at. So I think getting him at 27 is well worth the risk. I think he's got some Khalil Max, Will Anderson style to him. I don't know if he's going to be that player in this draft, but he's the kind of guy that Tampa's taken with the kid from Washington, Joe Tryon, and they've taken some guys. They've had pretty good success with those kind of players. Obviously, I think they do need more juice off the edge. I think we saw it in these games at the end of the year, in the Minnesota game and the Rams game. They weren't getting they have good pass rushers, I think what's going to make they don't have a great pass rusher, and maybe Chenna comes back and he's good next year. But I think I would
my
like
critique on Green, for what it's worth, is like he's going to put on some weight if he's going to play edge for Mike McDonald. He's like under 250, and those players don't play edge for Mike McDonald. So you got to be closer to 260 to do that. And so as much as I'm intrigued with Mike Green as a prospect, I'm just not sure he's really a fit for what the Seahawks do at edge.
I was going to say, this doesn't feel very Schneidery, but
can I give if people are interested, just a couple of alternative names at sort of pass rush?
Yeah.
Braden Swinson at LSU is a very, I think he's somebody who is not the finished article, but he's somebody that you maybe get in round 3 and he ends up being really, really good. So if people want to go and check out, perhaps someone who's not one of the big headline kind of guys, Braden Swinson's one of those, and Josiah Stewart's the other one. Stewart, Green, and Pierce at Tennessee all have a very similar pass rush win percentage. And although Stewart he never really copied his USC game, he destroyed USC in a big win against USC at the time for Michigan. And he's been working for Wink Martindale. Wink Martindale apparently loves this guy. We know that Wink Martindale mentored Mike McDonald quite a lot. And I just wonder whether, somebody like that is not going to test brilliantly, but you kind of get to those, maybe that 3rd round range. If they haven't taken another pass rusher, I could see someone like Josiah Stewart coming in and maybe sort of acting in that sort of future replacement for your Chenna and Wosu.
Yeah, those are great names. All right, Jeff, any other thoughts?
No, I think we're starting to get to the right idea. I think the second round offensive lineman seems really good. Again, this just the whole, as we keep diving into this draft, they can't just go into this draft needing to take 1 or 2 offensive linemen. I think that's where you'll make mistakes.
Yeah.
There's talent with the 3 of us I've talked to the 2 of you about this all year. They got to supplement. They need, and we can see there is some quality, but you just look at the names. There's not a lot of, last year we were looking at Jared Verse in some of these spots. They were picking 18 week. They could have drafted Jared Verse. There's a big, all first round picks are not equal. So that's why I keep coming back to Tyler Warren. I know some people hate it, but I think Rob's right. I don't think he's going to beat 18. So I think that was a moot conversation.
I mean, I really liked that's you and I have that shared crush. So I mean, they get Tyler Warren, I'm going to be very, very excited. But it's the thing I think I'm going to walk away with from this show today is last year when we were doing these mock drafts, it was really hard to make the case to trade down from 16. The players that were leaking down to 16 and how many players needed the quarterbacks and how much that was pushing people down. You get in the mid 20s, they were all gone. It just was it was a different draft at 25 than it was at 16. I don't feel that way about 18 so far. I feel like you're already past the prime of the draft. There might be a couple guys that fall to you, but there's only probably, I don't know, I haven't figured out exactly who for me. I'm not sure there's anyone that I'd stick there no matter what and take, as opposed to adding, if you can get a 2nd round pick, don't know how realistic that is, but if you can get a 2nd round pick, I think that's the move.
And the other thing is, can you remember the Frank Clark, Tyler Lockett draft? So probably the best, without us having a whole bunch of picks, probably the best one Schneider's had in the last however many years. When was that? That's it's in the last 10 years now. Time has moved on, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's 15.
Wow.
Yeah, 15.
It's nearly 10 years. It's 10 years ago.
10
so
years ago.
I think this could easily be the kind of a draft where you get a really good player in the 2nd round and a really good player in the 3rd round. And if you could end up with a 2nd and a 2nd, or a 2nd and an early 3rd and then another 3rd, I think you've got a real good chance to get some players. And the thing is that there are players in the 1st round who maybe have got the better tape, but there's some really interesting players. Could you get a Riley Mills from Notre Dame in round 3? Somebody who has got all of the traits and the production. Nobody had better production than him at defensive tackle. But somebody's just got that bit of a, it could be an impact player who, again, a few years down the line, you're like, Max Crosby went in round 4. How did Riley Mills go in round 3? That it's the same with the Birches and the Ivies. People like that who are going to be there. And, there are other players an Andrew Makuba just looks like the safety at Texas is the kind of player that you could see playing very well in a Mike McDonald defense. We've talked about Schlesinger, and you've got these receivers. Even the two Washington State guys. Kyle Williams is a terrific receiver who might be like a round 4, round 5 pick. And you look at Shakir at Buffalo, and you're thinking, why couldn't they be like him? For the Seahawks, why couldn't Ja'Cory Brooks do that? Why can't Josh Kelly do that? Why can't Ricky White, who I interviewed this week, do that? So I think there's, I think it's a more interesting draft than I thought it was going to be like 3 months ago. The first round's probably not going to be as interesting as rounds 2, 3, and 4.
Do you think there's any way like Schneider trades away a first for like a player in this year, like he did in 2015?
Who for what position?
Quentin Nelson, maybe?
Like a guard.
Would you do 18 for Quentin Nelson?
In half a second. Yeah. And that'd be the
How old
quickest
is he?
I don't care. He's the best guard in the league. He's incredible. He's
28.
What makes you think that, Jeff? That
was the conclusion they made in 2015, where they're like, it's a weaker first round. They thought like Jimmy Graham was better than any player they could have gotten. I think they did in Percy Harvin, which was the famous 13 draft, which sucked. Like that's like the worst draft ever, 2013.
Do you think he has got?
I don't know.
Do you think he's got the money in the bank to do something like that this year? I think he's under an absolute load of pressure, John Schneider.
Well, that's the case to do it. Actually,
that was where I was.
That's the case to do it, not to not do it.
The 2 times he's done it, it's been like weaker first rounds. He had clear needs. Well, Percy Harvin wasn't a clear need; that was a luxury.
The reason I wonder why it might be a bit of a risk is that if you make a splash move and that player gets injured or it doesn't settle in, you immediately get hammered.
Okay, let me interrupt for a second because I want to give you some names to make this more real. Okay. I don't think you make that trade for. I think you'd probably make that trade for a guy who's going to be a UFA in 2026. So they'd be on the last year of their deal. That's why the other team would potentially make the move. Here's a couple names that fit the bill to make it real. Joe Thuney. Joe Thuney is 33 years old and will be a UFA in 2026. Can you imagine the Chiefs saying, well, actually, that would allow us to keep Trey Smith, and so, yeah, we'll give you Joe Thuney?
No, he's too old.
Okay. Another name.
I'd do it for round 3.
Everybody would love. Wyatt Teller, 31 years old from Cleveland, will be a unrestricted free agent in 26. You do it for him?
I'd sooner drink my own piss.
He's not. He's a good player. He's not worth a first round pick. That's nuts.
That's probably. I mean, Rashawn Slater, you're not gonna. They're not really an option. He's a tackle.
Any edge guys?
Oh, you want to look at edge? I was looking at
Max
guards.
Crosby. Max Crosby wants out.
I would do it. See, that's one where I would do it.
Would you do 2 first for Max Crosby?
No.
You can't put that much stock on defense.
TJ Watt will be 31 and an unrestricted free agent in 26. Daniel Hunter will be 31. Trey Hendrickson, 31. Will be Joey Bosa, 30. Will be.
He's been really injured though.
He might get released.
Yeah, he might get released.
Yep. Sam Hubbard, 30.
He's another one who might get released.
There's a lot of edge rushers. There's AJ Epinesa for you. I know you'd like him. Micah Parsons.
Yes. Yeah. And that's 26. Someone they might. Aiden Dirty knows him pretty well.
He does want $40 million a year.
What about Jalen Phillips from the Dolphins?
No, he's coming off that injury and
good play.
Greg Rousseau from the Bills, I don't think would be available. I mean, there's a pretty good list of 2026 edge rushers coming. That's an interesting question, Jeff.
I think ultimately
I don't like it.
He hasn't had his full stock of picks in a while, it feels like.
Yeah.
So they traded the second away for Leonard. I feel like they traded the third away the year before. Well, they did that the third for the next third. And then the year before, they didn't have first round. Like, he hasn't had a full normal amount of picks in a while. use it. You know, you got to build Mike McDonald's team. Like this is Schneider's team. This is not McDonald's team.
I generally feel like an elite edge rusher would lift this defense into like dominant territory where they could be winning games instead of just keeping you in games. I also just feel like, man, you got to be dedicating your capital to offense right now. Like the offense is where you need to be investing. So yeah, hard. I don't know. I'd have to think about that a little bit more, but those guys have been on my mind on the edge side for sure. Yeah. All right. Last question. Don't have to be long about it. Jeff Simmons, who is going to be the Seahawks' next OC? I'm coming to you next, Rob.
I'm gonna say Udinsky comes out of the woodwork and overlaps Clint Kubiak.
And who do you want?
Who do you want?
I want Hank Fraley. I think that's the easiest story to believe in.
Rob, who do you think is going to be the name, and then who do you want to be the name?
Well, I think it's going to be Clint Kubiak, and I have to say I like the three. If it's those three, I'm happy with any of them. I think they're all really good options. There was no home run hire, so I've been quite pleased with the names that have emerged. So I'm happy. I'll be happy with any of these three.
Yeah. Man, it's hard for me to get there with Hank Fraley that the offensive line coach that doesn't have play calling responsibilities is going to be the pick. But something's pulling me in that direction that they're going to go that way. They're going to get to meet him in person. I think he's going to make a big impression. And I think you're going to have John Schneider sitting there thinking, fix me, baby.
It's interesting because I think Schneider's going to love him, and I think McDonald's going to love the other two.
Yeah,
and
right.
I wonder how they land on that, because I think you get that Udinsky guy. Like he seems like McDonald's like match made in heaven, and I think Kubiak in a lot of ways is a lot like McDonald.
I'm so stupid, not just because I left my wallet in my car, but because how many times do I fall for the guys that I think have the highest ceiling? And that's Udinsky. Like that's the guy I would be really excited about. And he's probably the lowest floor of all these guys.
Yeah, he could be a disaster.
Do you think that the thing with Udinsky that I was kind of worried about was the staff? You know, how do you build a staff? Because he can't presumably build a staff. But would they just keep the staff they have now, and then just insert?
I think there's a decent chance. I mean, I don't know about Jake Peets because I don't know that they need another passing game coordinator, but maybe I don't know. Maybe they give him more responsibility. But you'd think Scott Huff could stick around, and I like Scott Huff. I don't think I'm not against him.
Yeah, I think Kubiak would build the best staff. I think he has the most connections, but I think he's a little more vanilla. I think than the other two.
I don't think the rest of the staff is bad. Like Kenny DePalamalu is a great running backs coach. I think he did really good with that group this year. I think that
Pete's an interesting guy.
Mac, the tight ends coach, is super solid. Wide receivers coach, maybe you could upgrade there.
Frisman Jackson.
Yeah,
what's the most important thing? Is it to have the identity in it and everything and real clarity on what you're trying to do? Because it did feel a little bit like last season that wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
Or is it to address the biggest flaw with the team, which is the offensive line?
I think the two things are the same in my mind. Like, at least one is dependent on the other. I've become very, what's the right word? I have a lot of conviction right now about the idea that getting someone who calls a lot of great plays and is like a scheme advantage guy, I think those are not the way I want to go. I want to be a team where you know exactly what's going to happen and we can do it anyway. I think those are the teams that truly are great. And so that's why, to me, like, get me the offensive line fixed in a way that you can run for it in short yardage and beat one of the best short yardage teams in the NFL. And that allows you to opens up so much for the pass game. So that, for me, like, you have to do both.
Yeah. What I'll say is I watched an interview with Hank Fraley and thought I kind of was initially intrigued. And then I was kind of thinking, well, he's never done this before, and
Yeah.
not intrigued anymore. And then I listened to him speak, and I was like, I'm all in again.
Yeah, Rob
Yes.
sent me that clip. It's pretty odd. Like, he just has leadership all over him.
It does, doesn't he? He just seems like the kind of guy that you could imagine a whole bunch of players in offense wanting to die for. And
They
that's
would.
and that's the thing. And I'm with you, Brian. Look, I know it's not the trendiest thing to say, but I'm quite interested in seeing a Seahawks offense that can hit people in the face again. So I'm open for that. And if it means that you have to work very hard to put a passing game coordinator or somebody who can assist with Hank Fraley, I'm open-minded to that. But then there's Jefferson. You didn't get how many. If you can get the next great thing, an offensive coordinator, and if they believe that he is this 28-year-old wonder kid, then I don't know. There's just something very interesting about that. Having the next guy.
I know. That's where I'm kind of like, okay, I think Kubiak probably elevates the quarterback the most next year. But I think Fraley, big picture, is the best. And I think Udinski has the lottery ticket.
Well,
so
it's going to be fascinating. This is, for my money, this is Mike McDonald's first true hire where he has the field to choose from. He gets to decide who he's going to interview. He gets to make the decision primarily at the end. I don't feel like it was that way when you're scrambling the last time. And I like that there have been some non-predictable names that he's gone to. I think that speaks highly of him. And it'll be really fascinating to see where he ends up. And you have to assume he's having the same questions in his head that we all are. Like, hey, I tried this last time with somebody who had never called plays in the NFL. He was a play caller, but that didn't work out. But I saw what his tendencies were. And what did he say he fired Ryan Grubb for? It wasn't because of his quality as a play caller. It was philosophical. So I don't think this notion that, okay, Udinski hasn't called plays, Fraley hasn't called plays, I don't think that's the number one thing in Mike McDonald's mind. I think it's, are we aligned about what the frick we're trying to do out there? And then the rest of it, we will figure it out. And I think that's why, for me, like, Fraley and Kubiak kind of make the most sense. Udinski, like, from a philosophy standpoint, I don't know that I can point to, like, he has more of a case to be made as a passing related expert, given all the quarterback work he's done, than a running. But that's just my guess. That's my guess. All right, guys, we can keep going. We got the game coming up here in an hour. Please, God, I hate the Eagles. I'm not a big Eagles guy at all, but win today, please. Just end our. I do not want to see the Rams make it to the friggin' NFC Championship. Are you kidding me? Don't make it happen. Don't make me watch.
I just want everybody to lose.
Yes, everybody. Everybody lose. That sounds good. And then the game tonight, this afternoon, will be really interesting. Baltimore and Buffalo. Shockingly, it'll be snowing in Philadelphia, it sounds like, but it'll be nice and clear in Buffalo. So we will see. All right. That was Rob Staton. Make sure you check him out at Seahawks Draft Blog. That was Jeff Simmons. Rob, thank you so much for coming on today. Anything that people should check out coming up for you?
Well, thank you for the invite. And then there's a lot going on with the draft around the corner. Obviously, we've started doing the interviews now, so I've got a few player things lined up with that. Some other interviews that we're going to do in the next sort of 2 or 3 weeks. So at Rob Staton Football on YouTube, and then SeahawksDraftBlog.com will have the usual stuff we have up there. I feel like I'm writing every day at the minute, so check it out.
Awesome. Make sure you do. And Rob, it was great to see you, man. Have a great rest of your weekend.
Yeah, same to you, Brian. Thanks for the invite.
All right, that was Rob Staton. Make sure you give the show a like and click subscribe. I would appreciate it. Head on over to jkboots.com and use code HawkBlogger. Get the best boots you're ever going to own. A couple more people got themselves some boots yesterday, and they still have a chance to win the best pair of boots you're going to have. These are Seahawks-themed boots that only you will have, custom-made for your feet by the folks over at JK Boots in Spokane. Family-owned company. Every single thing is handmade there. They've got 300,000 subscribers to their YouTube channel because people just want to watch how they work with leather. That's how world-renowned they are. And not only that, but we've been active with charity already, giving away 4 pairs of boots to firefighters, either for Northwest Forest firefighting or LA firefighting. All have gotten boots for free because of all of you using code HawkBlogger to buy a pair of JK boots. Get it now. Use code HawkBlogger, get 10% off, and get a chance to still win that pair of Seahawks themed boots. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Go Eagles, as much as I can ever say that. And let's have a fun rest of our Sunday. I'll be back tomorrow morning. Don't know with who yet. Move some things around, so you'll have to come back, and we will talk about it then. Have a great rest of your day. I'm Brian Nemhauser, and this has been episode 301 of Hawk Blogger Morning.